Hey, what's good, gamers? We're going to put it on HenricK the Wreck as I'm actually dealing with technical difficulties at this moment. But how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Chris? Aside from the technical difficulties, of
Hey, well,
course.
that is the beauty of, going live stream. You're definitely going to have to deal with situations that occur on your end, just like how, you're in a battlefield. You definitely got to understand that, you don't want to land on the middle island, when you're playing Fortnite. You might get surrounded, you know what I'm saying? But hey, we might as well set the tone. We got a very funny video that we always like to showcase at the top. So HenricK has no idea. That's why we're putting him right in front of the camera. But he's like, dude, why are you putting me on the spot right now? What the hell is going on? Well, we got a really, really funny video that's been circulating across the web. So let's go ahead and take a look. So HenricK, when you see that, what are you thinking, my man?
Why are you playing that there?
You got to appreciate the ambition that this young man's bringing, don't you think?
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, gotta get your grind in somehow. Maybe it was a double EXP weekend or something.
it just might have. I know the comments were active. One person wrote, "People literally wake up and be like, how much can I hate today?" Are they addressing you, HenricK the Wreck? Did you wake up with some rage on Independence Day?
I mean, maybe a little bit for some of the topics we have later on. We'll get to it though.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're very right on that one. Another cat wrote, WTF, yes, it's that serious. What if the layover was like 5 hours? One guy go, on airport Wi-Fi? How the heck does he have better Wi-Fi than some cats right now? So that's amazing. Also, Call of Duty recognizing a gamer out there, dedication, period, which is very, very funny. Also, do you like to work out? Is that something that you want to do, HenricK, when it becomes summertime? I'm not much of a gym rat. Are you?
I don't go to the gym. I used to have a gym subscription, but I normally just do things at home now.
Yeah, you like to work the thumbs because you're a gamer.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so your thumbs are impeccable, right?
Oh, absolutely. You could lift a piece of metal with my thumbs.
Okay. Look at you, Pikachu. Okay, you gotta catch them all. I see you. But one guy had a very creative video that's been circulated on Instagram. So let's go ahead and take a look. Right. One guy wrote, good thing he got down when he threw it.
Yeah, otherwise he'd be stuck dancing too.
Exactly. Another cat wrote, Fortnite before Fortnite kids took over. And another comment was, what does this even mean? That's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. I'm sure there's some older cats on here right now that is going, I don't get it. Clearly, that is a Call of Duty player.
Yeah, clearly. The last time I played Fortnite was like last year, probably early on last year. And I think it got to the point where we weren't really even enjoying playing the game. We just wanted to troll each other. But every time we got a boogie bomb, it was about to happen.
Yeah, what's good. And then lastly, there was another video where we've kind of addressed this. I don't know if like people are starting to troll these like VR interaction experiences, but we'll let you, the gamer, decide whether this is for the clout of social media or she's just genuinely really, really scared. So, everybody wanted to get their voice in. Yeah, go ahead, HenricK.
I don't know if it's just me not being that scared of video games like that, but I think that's for the clout.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were debating online. One person wrote, no one's going to acknowledge that the homegirl in the wheelchair, like, how is she supposed to get away from the zombies? It's so funny. I've watched that video like numerous times. I never recognized her in the background. It's so true.
I didn't even see her.
It's those things you're not even thinking about. Also, another cat wrote, the Scooby-Doo run.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is very, very true. Like, come on, let's be serious. Are you really going to be running and screaming like that? And then lastly, the employee was like, okay, that's enough, which is so true. And that's what kind of makes me feel like this is all for clout. Like, really? Remember how we did The Gentleman like 2 or 3 episodes back? And, it's like, what are you trying to do, man? Are you like trying to impress the chicks in your group? Like, I don't quite understand. Are you screaming and hollering like this on the weekend when you're playing your go-to video game? I have no idea. But hey, listen, we got a great show for everybody that's tuning in live for our 4th of July special of Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show, where HenricK the Wreck and I discuss gaming news, industry talk, and so much more. So we might as well set the tone. You ready to rock and roll, HenricK?
Absolutely. You know I am. Let's go ahead and get raging.
Let's get it, baby.
Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Trepang 2. Despite the name, this is not a sequel. Trepang 2 is the only game to have come out of titular studio Trepang Studios. Development was started in 2016 originally as a hobby in order to learn Unreal Engine, but it eventually turned into a full game after some demos were released. People have compared the game to the original Fear that came out back in 2005, and the inspiration is definitely clear. But let's see what the game has to offer by first going over the gameplay. The gameplay of Trepang 2 is all focused around the gunplay. The gunplay is designed to be very satisfying, and it is successful at that. You'll find yourself going through the levels, wanting to experiment with all the weapons available in the game. Alongside the gunplay, there is a bullet time mechanic in the game called Focus, and these two gameplay elements is exactly how the game takes inspiration from Fear. But where the gameplay differs from Fear is the pacing, where Trepang doesn't as often let up on the combat, whereas Fear would let the atmosphere build. Both games have slight horror elements, but as a result of the pacing, the horror doesn't hit as hard in Trepang 2. But does the story pick up where the gameplay lacks? Unfortunately for Trepang 2, the story didn't get as much attention as the gameplay. The story follows you playing as an experimental super soldier that breaks free from the corporation that was experimenting on you. From there, you are picked up by a syndicate attempting to bring down said corporation. You then get sent on missions by them to attack corporate facilities and weaken their power, as well as sabotage their various experiments. The story falls flat, however, is mostly unremarkable and lacks proper pacing to keep you interested. Between missions, you will go to the Syndicate headquarters, which seem abandoned due to the lack of any NPCs. Clearly, the gameplay is the star of the show here. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat?
I'm going to say right now, I love the gameplay in this game. The gameplay is so reminiscent of Fear, and I loved Fear when it came out. I don't know if you ever got the chance to play that game, Chris.
Yeah, excellent.
In 2005. That game is still honestly talked about in some circles today because of how great it was. But like the gameplay, like I said, it's such a great experience. But like I said in the video, unfortunately, the story is not really there. It's just kind of like they needed some way to tie everything together and wrote together a story in an afternoon or something. But I know at the end of the day, that's probably just like a limitation of the fact that there are only about 4 people in the studio. They're a very small indie development team. And, between budgets and, maybe not having someone who can really put together a full-fledged story because,
Oh, you're working with only 4 people. But it's like the beautiful video that it really set the tone for Pause and Repeat. I mean, again, excellent video, HenricK the Wreck. I mean, it's very, very well done. I'm so glad that you referenced Trepang Studios based out in Vancouver, Canada. It is really remarkable to know that, this was started off as like a hobby project to learn Unreal Engine. And then later on became a team of 4. And then they created this, single person ultra violent, I mean, limbs, flying blood. I mean, you can even see dust particles pop up. And so on a level, you almost want to give it a 10 out of 10, but let's not give them a hall pass right away. I mean, the only thing that I've been kind of like trying to figure out, and I know a lot of gamers online are trying to debate it, is it trying to be a horror or is it satirical? That's what I'm not quite understanding when it comes to this game. And also when you think about the gameplay, I love the slow-mo effect. I think the slow-mo is like really, really cool and effective, especially if you're going to see, all the blood flying around. It's like the Matrix or, the latest John Wick 4.
It really lets you see everything in like minute detail.
Exactly. But I guess my thing is, it's like this had kind of like the similar gameplay style as like Titanfall 2. But I feel like with Titanfall 2, you can bunny hop and you can slide and you can knock over enemies like a bowling pin. This game felt like it could have used some of that as well. But, for $30, it's pretty much a game that's kind of worth playing. It almost feels like a PC game more than anything. I don't know if necessarily it would translate to the console as well. But when it comes to this game, I don't know. I'm not, just because it's a team of 4 and it's a $30 game doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to give it a hall pass. Because again, just because I'm labeling you as a pause doesn't mean it's a terrible game. But will I be repeating this game? I won't, HenricK. It's a pause.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same thing for me. It's a pause for me as well. Like I said, it's great gameplay, in this game, and I think that the game itself as a whole package is a great game. But maybe it's just not for me to repeat it necessarily, because I think that maybe in the future if they make another game, they'll probably learn from their mistakes, and especially when it comes to like the story. Right. And maybe make something more fleshed out. Maybe they might even get some more team members to actually put together a bigger game next time.
Well, I think that's definitely going to be the case. Do that. Oh, I definitely think that's
the case. Considering the feedback they've gotten from people, I think so. Considering I think that people are kind of on the same page that we are, where like they really like the game and they like the gameplay, but there's definitely some roughness around the edges based on entirely just the fact that they're so limited on what they can do based on their staffing.
Absolutely. And I think people respect it as well because, again, it's not a $70 plus game. It's a $30 game. So it seems accessible. And so if you want like a quick banger out for the summertime, something kind of refreshing since you played all the AAA games already out today, this game might be for you. Other than that, I think we're pretty solidified on how we stand, HenricK the Wreck. We're a pause, right?
I think so. I think it's a great choice if you're looking for something quick. It's not that long, and like you said, it's a great pace change from other games that have come out recently.
Absolutely. But hey, everybody, stick around. We got more left on Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show. Let's set the tone, baby. Let's get it. Did you get hit by a boogie bomb? I think I'm getting hit by a boogie bomb. What's good, listeners? Welcome to Patch Notes, where my co-host HenricK the Wreck and I discuss gaming news, industry talk, and so much more. And let's get it. We were talking about Microsoft versus FTC last week, and obviously the 5-day hearing has ended. So anybody that didn't want to get in the loop, we got you, fam. We'll cover the top 3 things that HenricK and I noticed that we're willing to discuss right now. So the fate of what could be the priciest merger in tech industry history is now in the hands of a federal judge who must decide whether to stop Microsoft from closing its deal to buy video game company Activision Blizzard. And it wasn't a good week for gaming companies trying to submit sensitive data. Most people know that AAA games cost a lot to make, but they can also be a cash cow if they're hits. And now, because Sharpies can fail to fully redact paper documents if you scan them, we can quantify some of Sony's PlayStation game budgets, earnings, headcounts, and other figures. So let's go ahead and take down the lower third for a second, HenricK, and we're going to go ahead and show you guys some of that documents right here, which was, as you can see, I mean, it's a little difficult to see right now, but if you have like a very special, like Adobe Photoshop or whatever, you can really, really pull out the text. And the biggest information that we found out between this document that you're looking at right now is Horizon Forbidden West. And what was the other game, HenricK?
The Last of Us.
That's correct. Yes, part 2. And these games were budgeted at 200 million plus. So, which is really, really crazy. We also found out that, there's more things that are going around with the whole idea with first party and second player games. They also figured out that, people were sort of debating about, the development and marketing costs for what it takes to develop these superstar games. And that's what kind of ruffled people's feathers. I know earlier this year, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority put out a 418-page report. And you might be wondering, did Henrik the Wreck and I read it? Hell no, we didn't. But we got an idea about what the hell's going on inside that report. So this was related to the whole Microsoft and Activision merger. And they were reporting that games in the past 5 years have an average budget of $50 to $150 million. But let's go ahead and check out some of the comments because people definitely wanted to voice their opinion. One person wrote, Sony doing the biggest business fumbles throughout this whole case. Even being involved is the biggest fumble by far, IMO. Another person wrote, Sony not taking this seriously anymore. They also know Microsoft will win. And I don't know if you ever seen this stuff before, HenricK, on Twitter. I love this kind of stuff. This guy, Jim, is here to take care of whatever you need. This guy, Lazar Alex, was like, yo, roast him, Jim. I need your opinion. Let us know what's good. He wrote, so finally, Sony finally decided to reveal something other than their overpriced consoles. Well, at least they're good at accidentally leaking information. It's probably the only thing they're consistent with. Ooh.
Boom, got him.
Boom, got him. So when you hear all this, HenricK, what's your first reaction? I mean, does that really surprise you that games in the past 5 years were 50 to 150 million and now are going to be 200 million plus?
Not really, considering that the gaming industry, it's still growing, honestly. And it's already grown to be bigger than pretty much every other entertainment industry out there, including like movies and theater, television, anything like that. And so, the budget for these big AAA games has to follow suit as well. It also makes sense why so many companies, specifically the big publishers, are really trying to push for the live service games, the games as a service, cloud gaming, things that they can charge monthly for, because they're more guaranteed to get any money back from things like that compared to having to rely on just the $60 or $70 price tag for a video game as their income.
But like when you think about those two games, Horizon Forbidden West and The Last of Us Part 2, I was a little surprised to see that they were both in the same ballpark when it comes to budget, because you think about Horizon Forbidden West, that's an open world game, compared to The Last of Us Part 2. It's quite linear other than the one mission where you're kind of exploring the open ruined city. So when I thought about that, I went, does that really justify, or is it like, where's all that money going?
I think I see what you mean. It's just like you're thinking because of the scale of the game that the budget has bigger, and I'm sure that is the case, considering open world games, as long as you flesh it out properly, is definitely going to take a lot of time and effort and money involved in that as well. But I think The Last of Us 2 is probably in a unique position where it's a first-party Sony title by Naughty Dog, big, studio that Sony works with. Already by that time had worked on the Uncharted games with them, which also I'm sure had a pretty decent budget considering success. But I think you have to also keep in mind that The Last of Us 1 did really well. So Sony, I'm sure, wanted to do the best that they could with Part 2. And I'm sure that means, they threw a bunch of money at it.
Hiring the best of the best, maybe.
The best of the best, trying to make the best product they can. And I'm sure also that the technology that they put into it actually is pretty expensive. I'm sure motion capture is expensive. Those suits, the motion capture suits, I think a consumer one that you could buy yourself is like 13 grand just by itself. Something like that. So think about how much money they're really spending on motion capture suits for the entire cast, and then just the act of filming it as well, and then translating that into the game, and And then also, they have some pretty big names in terms of voice actors in that game in the first place, who actually I'm sure command a pretty big price tag because of their notoriety in the voice.
See, okay. That's funny that you said that, because I don't mean to like cut you off right now, because there's all these rumors right now, rumors and leaks, and I got to throw that out there because it's not confirmed. But like some people are saying that The Last of Us Part 3 is not going to be solely focused on Ellie. It's going to be a group of scavengers, and then you might run into Ellie later on. Is that because they don't want to pay her?
I mean, maybe.
Or do they feel like the world's much bigger than Ellie now? Because they really pissed us all off when they killed Joel off. I think that's really what they know. So they just go, we got to abandon this story. We knew we wanted to launch Factions, which was supposed to be the multiplayer game. Supposedly it sucks ass. Now they got to switch gears. Are they panicking behind the scenes? Is this going to be another $250+ million game that hopefully has not become a bust?
I think that they are going to probably spend, or at least the same amount that they did with Part 2 with Part 3. But I think that maybe it is part of the fact that getting Ellie back is going to be expensive, but I think that at the same time, her storyline kind of finished. Like,
do you think so?
If you played, I think so. When you get to the end of Part 2, she's not Ellie anymore. She's like a complete,
I think that's the
different person.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the point, but like, I don't think that you can really make another story and really, have someone start from scratch like that again, because
it was interesting.
At the end of the game, she's like there's I get it that there's supposed to be a whole disconnect on like the player and what the player wants and what Ellie wants at the end of the game. But when you take that and you try and continue that with a more storyline in the third game, I don't think that's going to work. So I think it might be a good move for them to actually move away from Ellie. Her story's probably done. You can go, maybe reference her.
What
or,
if she
have
becomes
a cameo?
What if she becomes the villain, like the boss? Because now you're giving me all these ideas. They got these group of scavengers. Remember, they ends it off at the house. Her girlfriend leaves her. We don't know where the girlfriend went. She probably moved on to that boy toy that she kind of references throughout the game towards the tail end of it. She's in this open crop where you make it feel like there's no zombies. The only element is going to be human life that's going to be a factor in her life. And like you said, she's got no emotions. She's got no feelings. She's got no heart because she's lost everything. I'm kind of starting to feel like Ellie's going to be the villain in The Last of Us Part 3.
That would be pretty.
That would be kind of cool. You play as her for so long.
Yeah, yeah. One, you're playing for so long, but also she was like supposed to be mankind's savior, being the person who is immune to the cordyceps virus, or not virus, the fungus.
Right. Yeah.
So it would be interesting. I think actually, you're right that. Maybe if they make her the villain, all of a sudden now the person who is supposed to be a messiah in a sense is
exactly,
like the entire opposite of that.
That would be very, very cool. But hey, we'll see what's good. I know one publisher, even just to kind of end this point, was sort of suggesting that the combined development and marketing cost could top $1 billion per game. Like, that's insane. That. Yeah, and I can see that too.
You have to keep in mind marketing costs and all that as well, which I'm sure a lot of money goes into.
Exactly. And I know the second point that we wanted to bring up from the Microsoft versus FTC hearing was that the CEO, Satya Nadella, during the court hearing, was asked if he's aware that Xbox has some games that are exclusive to its consoles. Nadella claimed that this is necessary for Microsoft to compete in a playing field dictated by its more dominant rival, Sony, adding further, and I have that quote here, which we will showcase live on air, which is, if it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire exclusives on consoles, but that's not for me to define, especially as a low share player in the console market. The dominant player there, Sony, has defined market competition using exclusives, so that's the world we live in. I have no love for that world. And clearly the comments were active when Microsoft's CEO spoke up. So let's go ahead and show that before HenricK and I dive in deep. One person wrote, if there were no exclusives, why would you choose to buy one console over the other? As a gaming console, your primary selling point is the games it offers. Yeah, doesn't that make sense? You got to try to convince the consumer and gamer to get your product, right? So if all games are accessible everywhere, why would you go with Xbox? Why would you go with Sony? That's why everybody's freaking out about cloud gaming. Also, I don't see the lie here. I would add that exclusives did not start with Sony. Nintendo, Sega, Atari, and etc. have been doing this, but Sony definitely took it to the next level when it comes to exclusivity deals. That's business. Also, we got, I didn't want to do drugs, but everyone else made it seem so cool. Which is funny. It's like, just because you're saying, quote, low share player in the console market. And yes, we showed that graphic last week showing that, during the whole, 2010 all the way to kind of like 2020, Sony clearly dominated when it came to the console war. They were winning it. But that, then you could kind of debate who had the better game. That's always going to be a debate for the end of time.
I think I kind of agree with one of those comments where they're saying this is not new. Like, exclusives on consoles have been around since probably, you could even wager to say all the way since the beginning of the era of consoles. Like, that's just how the nature of that hardware is, where the company's going to make it and they're going to want to have people buy it, so they're going to want to put games on there that are exclusive to the console. But I think that at the same time, definitely Sony kind of took it a little far this generation and the last one, where they kind of went out there and was like, we're going to be a little petty and make sure that you don't get these studios and this studio and this game and this.
Well, don't you think they're being a little bit petty because of the terrible launch of their PS5 console, where like everybody and their mom couldn't get a console and now they're struggling? And are they really making that dinero back? And they're gonna always do like little things to kind of outpace their competitor, right? I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only difference that you're kind of saying, I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like there were no written out exclusive deals. It was just the practice, the standard of the industry back then. No one bitched about it then, but now that there's more indie game developers and studios now sort of being bought out, Microsoft, that whole ordeal, is that where we have to now kind of tackle this whole conundrum?
No, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there wasn't written out big, $1 million contracts of exclusivity deals between the publishers and the developers and the hardware manufacturers. And I think that, like you said, no one was really complaining about that. Maybe they were a little bit during like the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. But I feel like back then it was more of like, your console sucks because it doesn't have Halo, or,
exactly.
your console sucks because it doesn't have Final Fantasy, things like that. And there wasn't so much of the like, well, why isn't there Final Fantasy on the Xbox? Or like, why isn't there Halo on the PS5? Like, why is that the case? But I think also a point to bring up is that Microsoft kind of shot themselves in the foot here, because they decided at the beginning of last generation, I think, even, that all the Xbox exclusives, quote unquote, are going to be on PC as well. So why would you ever want to get a Xbox if you can get a PC, which is going to have a wide breadth of game selection, and then you can get a PS5 for the other games you want to play that are exclusive to that console?
Well, I think it's because they're kind of panicking, where we heard during the first 3 days of the court hearing that Microsoft was originally thinking about making an Xbox Game Pass and also a separate cloud gaming service called xCloud. xCloud eventually got kind of slashed, and then it all got merged together. But Sony's trying to tell the courts that it's like, really? Do you really buy that? Because again, Microsoft is the most dominant when it comes to the PC market. The United States at one point tried to break up Microsoft. So that's why the FTC is on the same side as Sony, trying to let you, the consumer, know that, like, do you really want this idea? I know that they got powerful devices and they're all around, but is that necessarily what we need? We'll see what's good. But I know that there was the last point that we wanted to reference for all the gamers that are tuning in live with us right now is on Thursday, federal judge Jacqueline Scott Corley revealed the upcoming Call of Duty 2023 game will be released on November 10th. How do we find that out? Because of the Sharpie. And I guess even the judge made a joke on the last day, like, hey, everybody put down your Sharpies. Is that even appropriate? I don't know. But anyways, the leak from the federal judge even prompted the official Call of Duty Twitter account to vaguely respond to the matter. Here is the tweet. Googly eyes. What are we cooking up? I know the esports world with FaZe Clan. They're like, hell yeah. Let me know what's good. So the comments were active. One person wrote, better be a remastered version and not another cash grab using just Modern Warfare 3 as a title. And then one person wrote, cease and desist, the judge, you won't. So some people want to see a remastered, which I'm just a bit baffled by. Nobody wants to see anything new? Really? Like, are we really in that time now where we're just really embracing remasters? Okay. This person said, come on, do something.
Do something.
Come on, baby. One person wrote, your game is not fun anymore. Gonna wait another year to see what Treyarch has been cooking. So some people kind of feel like, is this really even worth it for Microsoft even to acquire Activision Blizzard? Some people, like this gentleman, is clowning it. But clearly, people don't agree with that guy because we found out in the career. Well, they found out that just on Sony alone, there's 1 million players.
Let him cook.
Let him cook. You're like, don't diss him like that live on air.
This guy's got a point. The games, I think that they have this this cycle of, it's like the new Call of Duty comes out, everyone's enjoying it. 2 months in, maybe even a month in, everyone's like, man, screw this game. And then everyone hates it for the next rest of that game cycle. And then the next one comes out and everyone's like, oh, it's so great. I love it. And then they hate it again.
But I know, like, a lot of people always constantly complain about, the game is always still choppy. There's still a lot of mechanics that are not working out. They're always trying to beat out the anti-cheat code and, the whole cheating thing ordeal. And it's just always really consuming the gamer a lot, where, we even brought up at one point that Call of Duty had a faster response at responding to a tweet from Nick Merckx over his LGBTQ plus stance. But gamers were quickly going after Activision Blizzard going, dude, you guys were willing to respond to that within like 2 to 3 hours. But then when it comes to something where you guys hire, community development managers, and I know this only because we have our good friend Dan Mitri who works with Ubisoft, and that's an actual job occupation where they'll literally hire you to go inside Reddit threads and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, you name it, they're all over the place because they want to read into what gamers are bitching about, what gamers love. And so then they can enhance on that in that game or the next series. So do you think that kind of plays a factor in any of this?
Well, no, definitely. Considering I think that fans would like the developers to actually respond to their complaints, quickly, but at the end of the day, I don't think that that's really going to happen unless the developer really goes out and hires like a ton of community managers. And at that point, I don't think they're all going to want to do that.
Exactly. I think that is a really, really good point. But hey, listen, we got a launch date when it comes to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which is going to be dropping on November 10th. That was leaked from the redacted documents where Sharpie is not necessarily a good idea when you go and scan that document. And also they are suggesting that the map for the Battle Royale for Modern Warfare 3 is going to be Los Alamos, which is the map found in Modern Warfare 2 campaign. So if you like that setting, you're going to absolutely love that. But don't anticipate that Battle Royale map to drop the day of November 10th. It is understood that the launch of Season 1 is penciled to begin at December time. So, HenricK, what's going on in the world of, GameSpot? What are they talking about that it kind of perked our ears?
Well, so GameSpot has their own podcast called Spot On, hosted by Tam and Lucy. Great guys. They just brought up a good point about the industry and as a whole, where they feel like games are announced a little too early. They brought up the example of how Perfect Dark, the new one that was supposed to come out eventually, got announced at the Game Awards back in 2020, and Xbox's Matt Booty, once again, this guy who's has something to say about whatever's going on, I guess.
Always.
He said I haven't played it and it was great, but we've seen nothing about it since 2020. I don't think I've ever seen a single thing.
To be honest with you, HenricK, this was the first time I even heard that a Perfect Dark was happening. Like, the Game Awards wasn't necessarily really popular, in my opinion, in 2020, so I missed that. But the fact that Matt Booty, who we've been calling out, we're hesitant on the whole VR and AR thing, and then it's like, nah, dog, you're kind of trying to keep your pocket full of shells clutched in tight, and you're not really trying to reveal too much, because we understand you're in a battle with Sony and FTC. But what were Tam and Lucy talking about on their weekly podcast show called Spot On that really struck a chord with you, HenricK?
Well, they were saying like, oh, well, when you announce these games so early, it hurts the industry. It hurts the perception of these games, and I think that we have some choice words about this, but we do have a clip if we want to roll that whenever you're ready, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dive into what Tam and Lucy said on their GameSpot's weekly show Spot On. So let's go ahead and take a look.
So when a report like this comes out, in the case of Perfect Dark, where it's like, hey, this game is very early in development and it's probably going to be quite a few years until we see it, it can be damaging in a bunch of ways, right?
When a report like this comes out, it can damage, in a way, it can damage the perception of the developer, or even the publisher, or even the franchise, or even, especially when you are talking about a franchise that is tied specifically to a platform, as Perfect Dark is tied with Xbox, it can be damaging towards Xbox.
The conversation becomes, is this thing even real? Will it ever come out?
And is this the new industry standard? Clearly, everybody on their YouTube video was active in the comments section. One person wrote, no company should announce a game or even show a trailer until there's an actual gameplay. All of these CGI announcements are only setting people up for disappointment. I agree. Don't you hate that, HenricK?
Yeah. I think so too. There shouldn't be like 5 CGI announcements before we see any gameplay.
Because a lot of the time, the CGI doesn't the CGI always sometimes look way better than the actual gameplay, and then you're like, dude, why did you have to do this to us? Another person wrote, I hate that feeling of a game that's supposed to come out in like a couple months getting delayed by a year or two. It's sort of the gut punch that I absolutely hate. I understand if they need more time to develop a game, but just don't get our hopes up. That's a different point than I think what's going on. Like, this was 3 years out. This is not something where there was an actual release date, announcement. This is just, hey, we're in early development. It's like, oh, we're going to keep waiting. It's like Elder Scrolls 6, right? Oh, it's going to be coming out. And now we're hearing reports that it might not potentially come out until 2028. Is it really going to be all that hype by the time it comes out? We will see what's good. Another person wrote, yep, MK showing up a few months after the announcement is awesome. Rather than having your emotions messed with for years, they were able to quietly do their thing. And now I can just be excited for a focused few months. Keep fighting for LOK. To more, and please. Which that was Mortal Kombat for anybody that didn't understand what MK was. And it's like, is that necessarily the case? I mean, I know when I was thinking about, Mortal Kombat, it's like, yeah, I understand that they're showing the gameplay and all that stuff and etc. But it's like, aren't we kind of like, sick and tired of the whole rendition of like copycatting the MCU and kind of what the Flash did and go, hey, we got a multiverse coming up. I mean, is that really enough to kind of, sway the gamer to be like, hey, I think this is going to be such a great game, knowing that it's actually going to launch on day one of the release date?
Well, I think with a game like Mortal Kombat, especially, the gameplay really is what holds its ground more than anything else. The storyline of Mortal Kombat's never really been the forefront. I remember growing up back with Mortal Kombat 4, and you go look back at the cutscenes in that game, they're terrible. But I know they've been trying to really, make things better ever since. And they, do a decent job, but I still feel like just that genre that they're in, the fighting game genre, kind of struggles with storyline a lot of the time.
Right.
And it really is going to depend on the game. But in regards to like their whole Tam and Lucy's whole argument on of if you announce these games so early, it hurts the image of the developers, the publishers, everyone, the industry. I feel like I can kind of see what they're saying, because when you look at the way that gamers perceive these games that are announced, several years in advance, great example would be the Elder Scrolls 6 game, which got announced and then they just recently said, oh, it's going to be another few years. What?
But so don't you feel like the hype is still there, though? I mean, when you played Skyrim and you're still playing Elder Scrolls Online, I mean, you're still always going to have that in the back of your cranium, like, oh, yo, that's cool. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's like, in their words, they were basically saying like, no, I think it's really, really damaging. But what I did think was really funny that Lucy wrote, I actually wrote it down on my piece of paper because I thought it was pretty funny. It wasn't actually in that same clip, but she wrote, it's like a mood board before decorating your room. Yeah, that's kind of true. That's a bit funny. But I don't think there's anything bad about, hyping up a game way early in development, because I think that kind of gives the publisher and the studio developers an idea about whether the consumer even really wants like this style of game remastered, or potentially a whole new anticipated release that relaunches this series all over again.
No, yeah, I can agree with that, where it really does give them some feelers out there on like what the perception of that game title even is, especially when it comes to reviving what was once dead series like Perfect Dark.
Right.
I think you're always going to see people who are going to be frustrated. I think that when the game does end up releasing, like Elder Scrolls 6, for example, I don't think that group of people that are really, were frustrated for so long are going to be frustrated anymore, because now what they've got is the game, and that's what they wanted in the first place. And really, I think at the end of the day, probably the people who are complaining in the first place are going to be the vocal minority, because the majority of people, they don't care. They really don't. And they're not at the industry saying, oh, why are you announcing these games so early? Like, now I hate you. As the developers, as the publishers, everyone.
Right. I think it's a bit of a bold stance that the host, Tam and Lucy are saying. It's going to be a very damaging effect. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's be real. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Even when you got the troll accounts, the memes, and, this kind of culture that gamers bring upon, just because you're making fun of a delay actually brings more eyeballs, that advertising dollars you can't spend. So,
and I'd say even then, if there's a lot of hate towards a game being announced, if I was in the position of the developers in that sense, I'd be like, all right, well, you know what? We're going to prove you all wrong. We're going to do a great job with this, and you're going to be amazed.
Yes. I think it would have been more of a point like the second comment that we showed up on air, where like if you actually dropped it on the release, there is a release date dropped, and then you decide to delay it another 2 or 3 years, or if you pull like what the new Suicide Squad game's going to be like, and, you keep promising, and then delay. I feel like that's more of a damaging effect than a pre-hype and then saying, hey, Perfect Dark's coming. I played it. It's pretty cool in the pre-development process. I don't think that's very damaging, in my opinion. But HenricK, is there anything else you want to say about this matter?
I think that's it. Honestly, though, Matt Booty, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, what are you doing, man? But hey, go ahead and check out host Tam and Lucy's GameSpot weekly show. It's called Spot On. They are amazing cats. And I'm going to start transitioning into more of industry talk. It's kind of global news, because President Emmanuel Macron of France blames social media and video games for the unrest currently sweeping his country. Why does this sound kind of similar? Didn't someone say something similar like this last week? Oh, yeah, we were talking about RFK Jr., talking about, mass shootings and Prozac and how that correlates with the youth today here in the United States. But, feathers are rumbling in, the country of France, because, comments, were very active when it came to, 3 consecutive nights of rioting in response to a fatal police shooting of a teenager. So Macron, the president of France, responded to the matter. So we got a clip for everybody who hasn't seen it yet.
I will end by calling all parents to be responsible. It is the parents' responsibility to keep them at home, and so it's important for the calm of everyone that parental responsibility is fully exercised, and a call on the sense of responsibility of mothers and fathers. Internet platforms and social networks are playing a considerable role in the movements of these past days. We saw on several of them, Snapchat, TikTok and several others, both violent gatherings being organised and a sort of copycatting of violence. This, among the youngest, leads to a sort of escape from reality, and we sometimes have the feeling that some of them are living in the streets of the video games that have intoxicated them.
So yes, comments were active all over social media. And one comment wrote, blaming video games is the lamest excuse every politician uses to hide their own failures behind. Another comment wrote, how long have video games been around for? Typical globalist response. If it's not video games, they say it's the music. They never say it's due to them and their actions. Lastly, we have, as a game designer and systems developer, I'd like to entirely apologize personally for being the sole and only reason for the conditions in France that led to these riots. I feel like he's trolling. Are you really a game developer? Are you a game designer? Are you being serious? I don't know. But
maybe he's an indie one.
But you hear the direct words that the president of France is saying, HenricK the Wreck. He's basically saying we feel like these video games have intoxicated the youth and they're playing this in real life in the streets. Does this kind of get old and redundant after a while?
No, absolutely. And I feel for the people who are in that situation in France right now. Like it is a terrible situation. We're not a political podcast, but have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, like, come on, Macron, like video games as the excuse is not an excuse anymore. That is something from like the 90s and prior that had been used a lot. Because, like that comment said, it's an excuse that a lot of politicians will bring out when it comes to finding a scapegoat to put all the blame onto.
Yeah, but he also... Go ahead.
I don't think that video games are to blame. It's other factors more so than video games. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Well, he also brought up social media. He felt like, TikTok and Snapchat are playing a big factor in fueling the fire with the riots during those 3 consecutive nights. And he also said it's the parents' responsibility to keep the kids home and to watch what they're playing. It's kind of like that joke that we were always saying all the time. Our generation, growing up with our baby boomer parents, like, they're not involved with video games. They're just not going to get into it. But, our future millennials, us, that are in the 25, 35 ballpark, we're starting to grow up, starting to build family and etc. These are not necessarily those kids that are running out in the streets right now because you'd be a little wee lad, unless you're like some chick that, got pregnant, unfortunately, 14 or 16 in high school, then maybe they might be one of the rioters running around in the streets right now. But when you see all this and etc., it's like, does he really have a point? I mean, I know a lot of people have been clowning Macron because literally last year, he promoted his own nation as the, quote, the country of video games and described gaming as an essential part of France's cultural export and a significant aspect of its soft power. What has changed over the year? Now he's calling for censorship and stricter mandates on social media. Are you in favor of censorship online?
I don't think that it's really necessary. Like, okay, so the private companies like Twitter, Facebook, Meta, all of them, they have the right to do so if they really, really want to, considering they're a private company. They can do what they want. But when it really comes to something that's supposed to be a platform for people to engage on and discuss things like this, going in and censoring things like this is, I feel, unnecessary, because why would you censor something so important to talk about? And granted, there's going to be some censorship already in like really hateful things that people are going to say. But I think even then, like, yes, you don't necessarily want to see someone, going out there and saying, yeah, F you, this situation is all your fault, all that, hate just spewing from their posts. You don't want to see that, but that's just kind of the reality of things. And I think that unfortunately, that's just how the internet is as well. Like, there's going to be people out there who are going to hate one way or the other, even if it just means that they just are hating just to hate. They might not even really care about what they're trying to hate on. They just want to hate. They're hateful people. Or they just want to troll. There's that too. People just want to rile people up in the first place.
Yeah, I'm always on the idea that censorship should never be a consideration when it comes to any aspect of entertainment or even social media. I think one of the greatest examples of this reason is Roseanne. She was on the Theo Von show and she said some terrible, outlandish statements towards the Jewish community. I won't get too much into it, but if you want to look it up online, you will be completely baffled. And the reason why I'm saying that we should be leaving it online is because we could show the whole world how much of a clown she really is. Okay. And I think that's kind of the main reason we can always put these people, the minute you put something up and then you take it down immediately doesn't really allow a community or a society to grow from certain situations that don't represent us as a whole, as a country, or the entire world. But then when it comes to, when I think about BLM, Black Lives Matter, right? There was a lot of people that were really doing very passionate protests all across our nation, but then you're going to have the youth and you're going to have even adults that are going to utilize this situation to be a bunch of jackasses that are not actually doing something that's serviceable. They're actually just damaging, storefronts and looting and hoarding and doing all those sort of things. So it's like, that doesn't represent the whole BLM movement. That just happens to be a small party. So I think it's kind of crazy that Macron immediately goes, all the riots, all the kids, they're mostly youth. They play video games. It's Grand Theft Auto. It's Fortnite. It's Call of Duty. That's the main reason. And so what do you suggest next? Do we play Call of Duty and Modern Warfare 3 and shoot Teletubbies with the water gun? I mean, what are we going to do? Crazy. But, as you can clearly see, Macron has said that he is going to work with the French government to work with social media companies to remove, quote, sensitive content. And HenricK, what's going on in the Reddit world and another drama in the AI?
Well, AI is constantly evolving, as we all know. Every week, I feel like there's something that comes out in regards to AI. But in particular this week, this was something that actually has some big, maybe going to be some big ripples moving forward along the entire industry. So Valve, who owns Steam, one of the biggest game distributors on PC, probably the biggest, I'd say, actually, they came out and said, if you're going to put AI generated content and artwork in your game, we're not going to approve for the store for sale. And they came out later with a statement that they said to The Verge saying, quote, not to discourage the use of AI on Steam. Instead, we're working through how to integrate it into our already existing review policies. And it's really just, I think they want to see how AI evolves and how the detection of AI evolves probably as well. But at the same time, they don't want games to get released out there that have been trained on models of other games, like we saw recently NVIDIA's generative AI. It was a real-time video game interaction, essentially. It was still pretty rough, but you could clearly see that it was trained on a lot of already copyrighted materials, because that looked entirely ripped out of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, they took assets.
Yeah, and really, I don't think that Valve wants this. They don't want it to be that there's some legal issue, and now who's to blame? Well, not the developer, obviously, because they're going to go run off. It's going to be the storefront that decided to host them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to protect your bottom dollar. And I know people were active. One person wrote, honestly, this is just Valve covering their bases to make sure they don't get dragged into any legal issues. and is perfectly understandable given how quick companies are to sue. The AI community will still probably rip this decision to shreds, though. Another person wrote, I never heard Valve asking for game developers if they own their Photoshop or if they have proof that they didn't pirate all their assets. Also, Atomic Hearts and many other games with AI-generated content are still on Steam. And lastly, was another post that was circulating the other day with there's another similar case, where one guy wrote Inner Keeper's Basement, that's my game, was released in early access on the 29th of April this year, which is more than 2 months ago, and Valve did not mention even once that our AI generated art is not okay. So clearly when you see this comment, and I will reshare the comment that we just showed again, which is, hey, Atomic Hearts and many other games were AI generated content, how is that allowed on Steam? I got an idea about why it's available online. It's because of how Ubisoft is protecting their Ghost Rider. And if you don't remember what Ubisoft is creating, they're trying to make NPC dialogue a way faster experience for the script writers, for behind the scenes gaming studio companies. So what they're essentially doing is they're taking assets of what's already in-house, in studio. So like, for example, what do we always bitch about with Call of Duty games? It's like, doesn't that building always look the same? Well, with AI, they'll make it very, very easy to already use their design models and assets and etc. To be able to generate games a whole lot quicker. But when you just grab from gosh knows where you're going to grab these visual assets, that's where I feel Valve has a problem. And to just quickly remove anything from being a potential problem, they just have to clear house. And unfortunately, indie house developers are going to be hit first.
Yeah, especially since the indie developers, they don't have the budget to really defend themselves in the same way as the AAA.
Exactly.
AAA, I'm sure they're going to have a whole team of lawyers to defend them and say, nope, we didn't use any copyrighted AI machine learning. We did everything ourselves.
Right.
Whereas
it's like,
an indie
we
developer,
use
they're not going to be able to do that. Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a very messy situation. And it's like, as you even said, too, it's like, listen, it's like they're not discouraging people from using AI. You just have to back it up with Steam, like where you are getting this integrated AI. Is it actually through your in-house, or are you actually getting it from, the interweb? Because then that becomes an issue, because then everybody can jump on ships. And then there was also a suggested rumor too, even with that original June Reddit post, which it was too long. We didn't want to take screenshots because it's a really, really long thread, but it was started by a gentleman named Potter Harry 97, who said, his Steam game is no longer being published because of AI generated content. Some people feel like this might be the case, HenricK. I'm curious on what you think about this. Some people feel like maybe his team, like his tiny circle of developers, maybe license some of that AI product to be their sole owner, which potentially screws the whole gaming aspect in general. So if you claim
possible,
that's what some people are thinking.
Yeah, I think that, moving forward, I think that's going to probably become more common where, you can just buy a package of some content for an AI model to have learned off of, and then it's going to generate more stuff for you. I feel like that's probably going to be something of a business venture for these companies that already have so many assets to share. And I'm sure it's already also going to be something that probably big places like Getty Images are already looking into as well, because they have so much content that they can just license to someone who needs to get some AI learning in, and they can say, here's all of our library, or a good portion of our library, and you can use that. Just pay us a little bit of a license fee and you got it. I think, though, this policy might actually end up being tweaked later on.
Yeah, I mean, people are always going to still kind of figure it out. And I think that's a really, really great point that you just referenced right now with the whole Getty Images. They're currently in a lawsuit right now, battling out, with different individuals that are using, AI generated content, where Getty Images is claiming, dude, they're using our material, our source material, and then potentially building a whole new image, a whole new video, a whole new asset, and they want to stop that immediately. So yeah, we're gonna have to see what's good. I mean, AI, it's really, really cool. It's really super bitching. But I guess the last thing that I will say is that PR individual that you were referencing that spoke with The Verge, the PR representative is Casey Boyle, and she said lastly about the company's current review process that takes into account current copyright law, and that, quote, while developers can use these AI technologies in their work, they cannot infringe on existing copyrights. So that's why people kind of feel like, the minute you make an AI generated content, copyrighted immediately, so then you don't get attacked by potentially Getty Images and etc. But hey, we got a little one last topic that's pretty fun. It's pretty wild. If you ever wanted to have one of the largest video game collections, it could be yours for $1 million. Unless you're Elon Musk, you're gonna have to pay $1.5 million. I didn't say it. This is the gentleman who is saying that. But if you ever wanted to own your own retro video game store, it is located here in California. One lucky person will be able to get the whole entire stock, a 15-foot tall Mario, and it is currently being listed on Craigslist. There is the ad right there. I mean, kind of made me giggle. It's like, where's this located? I mean, every comment that I kept reading, HenricK, was like, it's based in a flea market, which, like, I'll say my thought for after we play the video, because I have something to say about this whole idea about retro video games being in flea markets. But I got the video for everybody that's tuning in right now with us. So let's go ahead and play that video.
Here's a Pokemon Yellow. I think it goes for about $100 in box. Here's another one. I think it's about $200. I'm guessing right now because I don't have the list in front of me. Mm-hmm. Pokemon Red is really sought after. Contra was a big classic if you remember playing that game. Mega Man, this particular Mega Man is sealed, and very rare to find anything that's sealed. Somebody just did not play it. Shattered Hand, that one was $130 just for an old Nintendo game.
Get out! That's crazy. I haven't even heard of that game, and it's $150.
Give us a call at 916-821-3284. Write that down, 916-821-3284. Dave's Retro Games.
So as you can clearly see, this has been around since the late 1980s, and now the current owner says he just wants to retire. Is that really the case? We'll go into the comments right now. One person wrote, $1 million isn't that bad for 20,000 games, assuming that it doesn't include consoles and collectibles. $50 a game, plus you get the store and whatever else. Now I just have to ask my wife. Good luck, buddy. Also, I'm not sure you know what value is. ... This is a bunch of junk. Even at 1/3 of that price, I think you would be getting ripped off. And lastly, yeah, as much as I like to hypothetically get a loan and buy this off him so I could run my own game store, there's a reason why he is straight up selling it instead of hiring someone to work the store for him. It isn't profitable. I think that's a great point. And the reason why I wanted to kind of reserve my comment until we watched the video and read off some of the fan comments was because when I kept thinking about the flea market and even looking at this ad that I will showcase again on screen, you see it. It's like, for $1 million location, like, I'm putting location together and I'm putting the collectibles. There is no way in hell, after seeing that video, I'd be paying $1 million for it. And he just says, I just want to ride off into the sun. I just want to retire. Isn't this kind of a sign for what's to come? Like, there's like all those games that he showed, like Pokemon Yellow and etc. Like, those kind of feel like fillers. Like, we all understand people like to collect the boxes and the instructions because it's the aesthetic of things. But like, I just don't see physical copies being the future in video games. And I think this is just one of those unfortunate examples of the end is near.
Well, I think, you got a good point there, because we definitely see that year over year that physical copies become less and less of a thing that the industry even wants to do. Like, they're constantly just moving towards digital licensing of games rather than, hey, there's a disc here. You want to buy it? Sure. Put that disc in your console and it works. Nope. Usually nowadays it feels like the disc is just a way to license the game to you, and you have to download the game anyways with the internet connection. But I think also in regards to this situation, he's charging like $200 for some of these games. And, yeah, they are collector's items. But I think if someone comes in there, like you or I, and is not a collector necessarily, and they're looking for a game from their childhood that they want to play, and they're like, oh, you got Pokemon Yellow. Like, how much is that? $200. What? I am not paying $200 just to play a game from my childhood. I would rather go and, emulate that if I can't get it somewhere else, because why would I pay $200 unless I have money to burn for that? Plus, he's probably going to fleece me like for another $300, $400 for a console like a little handheld console to play that if I don't have one myself.
Yeah, but I think the point that maybe you're missing, HenricK, is I think the price is so high. It's because they got the box. It's not so much the actual game, right?
Well, yeah, of course. But I think that's a whole debate that a lot of people have been having in the past few years. It's the act of collecting these games has become such a commodity, because when you go look for these older games that are in box and everything, they're just they're out of reach for the majority of people, unless you really, really want a collection of your own, or you already have one and you're just missing something. And I feel like that's probably hurting his business in a sense also, because he's looking online, seeing that these collector's items demand this much profit, even though none of that profit's actually going to the developer anymore, obviously, because it's just a used market item now.
Yeah.
And people are walking in and being like, you're charging $200 for that or $300 for that? Like, bye. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Right. And think about our generation. We're the generation that got our iPhones and we started jailbreaking them. And then we jailbreak them and then turned our iPhones into emulators to be able to play any kind of game, all the way back to Atari and Dreamcast and even the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Like, it's so accessible to just use the technology that we got right now, where it's like, I don't really want to go back and revisit the past. I mean, even when you look at that video clip, you see the wall of all those wires, which just seems like, oh my gosh, my head hurts when I look at all that stuff. It's like, do people really want to get invested in all of this? And I think, again, my personal stance on this, it's like, it's unfortunate to kind of see stuff like this go, but it's just the end of an era. You're not seeing people camping outside of, games, the GameStop anymore. It's just not very much a reality. It was a very rare occasion when it came to Zelda. We might see it again with Modern Warfare 3, but then again, who knows? Who the hell might want to pre-order nowadays when we know that a good majority of games like Starfield, you buy the physical copy and there's no CD in there. It's just a code. Do you really want to just buy the code that wouldn't work if you ended up having to own a retro store 30 years later from now? Oh yeah, I got the whole box, but the code don't work. Can't play the game.
Yeah. And also I want to say, when you bring up the whole like midnight release thing, they don't even do that anymore. Like even if they do, it's not in the same way that it was, with like a whole line of people, everyone's hyped. You go talk to someone in the line, you have a good conversation about the game and maybe some other games, and maybe make some friends along the way while you wait. You don't see that anymore, partly because these retailers that like GameStop or Best Buy or wherever you go, they're not going to do the midnight release. And even if they do, it's going to be like, oh, you have this set time to go pick it up. And that's your midnight release. 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock,
pretty
10:30,
much.
whenever.
Yeah, is this turned into a barber shop? Yeah, is this turned into a barber shop? Nowadays you can't even walk into I went to Supercuts the other day, and it's like, dude, I'm like the first person in. There's nobody around, and it's like, can't you just cut my hair? No. We need. Did you call ahead? We're really doing that now? That's kind of how the video games have become with the pre-orders. Like you just joked. It's like, don't come at midnight. Please come at 12:15. No. Please show up at 9 a.m. And if you miss your call, you got to come back later because, it's going to be a high demand and we don't want a big line outside your store. But hey, again, you can own Dave's Retro Game Store that's been around since the late 1980s for just $1 million. Could be all yours. But hey, HenricK the Wreck, this has been such an incredible show. And we can't appreciate you, the listeners, for tuning in every Tuesday live at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And just want to let you guys know, since you guys are joining us till the very, very tail end, you might as well hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss a live show. And HenricK the Wreck, where can they follow you on social media?
So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and also on our website, chriscollinsshow.com. We have a section that we just put up for all of the pause and repeat sections of our shows.
Did. Yeah, you could definitely go ahead and check that out. We would definitely love to hear from you because, like we love to do live on this show, we love to bring the fan engagement and comments to the show. So comment box is open on those web pages. So definitely let us know how you guys feel. Do you hate my stance? Do you love HenricK's stance? Do you love me? Do you hate HenricK? I don't know. You tell us.
Yeah, if you hate us, let us know. You know, we want to start a conversation, you know, see what's up.
Exactly. But hey, again, can't thank you guys enough, gamers, and happy 4th of July. Be safe. Don't be a cucaracha, wild turkey, or a motley crew. Do it in the safe way. Have a beer on me and have some good food. And
get some good barbecue or something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can invite me to the cookout next year. But hey, we will see you guys next week, fam. Peace.
Yep, we'll see you then.